Hey there, Another Castle. This is Henry, or HSBD39. Today I'll be giving you guys a quick preview of the Wii U version of Metroid Prime Trilogy, and also by extension showing off some of the stuff with the new Wii downloads on the Wii U. In the background, I'll show some upscaled footage of the introduction of Metroid Prime, which I honestly think is one of the best intros to any game ever. But I'll mainly be talking about the implementation of these new Wii downloads on the Wii U, with some of the features which are included and some of the ones which surprisingly are lacking. First thing I should mention, you may have picked up from the waving hands at the start, these games do actually require the Wii Remote and Nunchuck controllers that I, among many other people, haven't really used for quite a while. This is really unfortunate, especially for those who don't have the Wii controllers, which of course weren't bundled with the Wii U, and it would have been really nice for them to include old school GameCube style controls, so that people who don't have those controllers can just use the gamepad, which is bundled, and also so that we have the choice to experience the games, especially Metroid Prime 1 and 2, with the control schemes that they were originally designed for. Furthermore, and perhaps most importantly, the original style controls would be far better suited to off-screen play. Right now, if you want to play just off the gamepad, you have to prop it up about a meter away from you so you can still point at it to aim around. That's far less than ideal, and you can't play like that in bed like you might be able to just using the gamepad in your hand. But to be completely honest, this omission is understandable, or at least predictable. This is essentially just a port, and the Wii version did only offer the Wii Remote and Nunchuck controls. Not to mention that Metroid Prime 3 was specifically designed around the Wii's motion controls that wouldn't really be able to translate over to the gamepad, so the limitation would have to exist in some way, shape or form within the game anyway. And finally, I do really think that the motion controls are the best controls for the Prime Trilogy anyway. There really are some of the best uses of motion controls in gaming, to the extent that I'm kind of shocked that other first-person games that use motion controls weren't able to quite match their fluidity. So overall, I do completely get why they've decided to restrict use of motion controls within this game. But what confuses me alongside that is that there are some weird limitations when it comes to what sensor bar you want to choose. The Wii U gamepad does have a sensor bar that can be used in place of the original Wii sensor bar, which works better at shorter distances and really should be great for those who either don't have a sensor bar or just prefer not to have it out. But in a really bizarre oversight, you can't choose to use the Wii U gamepad in place of the sensor bar without having the Wii sensor bar in the first place. This is because the menu that you saw at the start, where I chose the TV and gamepad as a display option, completely arbitrarily has to be navigated with the Wii remote pointing at a sensor bar. So you're effectively gated out of the game because you don't have a piece of equipment which isn't even necessary to play the game in the first place. I did do some experimenting and was able to find two rather annoying workarounds for this. Firstly, at that menu you can activate gamepad only mode by pressing plus on the Wii remote, but of course this is on the gamepad only. You don't get to see the image on your TV, which is pretty undesired for most people. Secondly, just like on the Wii, if you plug a classic controller into the Wii remote, you can control the menus with the control stick as though you were using the sensor bar. So instead of needing an unnecessary sensor bar to start the game, you need an unnecessary classic controller, but at least it is something. It is worth noting that there's no way to turn off the screen of the gamepad if you're using it as a sensor bar, which could be really distracting for some. Ultimately, if you're looking to avoid the sensor bar or motion controls in general, it's really hard to recommend Metroid Prime Trilogy on Wii U, or any of the other motion control Wii games that you can download on there. One final potential problem with Prime Trilogy on Wii U in particular is the file size. It comes in just under 8GB, so if you are running out of space, or even if you just have the basic Wii U, you're going to need an external hard drive in order to play it. But unlike the other obstacles of sorts to play in the Prime Trilogy, this one is completely understandable. Even though they're old games, these are three quite huge games included, and 8GB is completely necessary and understandable. So I have been complaining quite a bit about this port of the Prime Trilogy and the surprising restrictions of Wii downloads on the Wii U, but in all honesty, these are very minor nitpicks that only apply to a few people. Most Wii U owners have fairly easily accessible Wii remotes, nunchucks, and sensor bars, and if you do fall into that category, I could not recommend the Metroid Prime Trilogy highly enough. It is truly a masterpiece of a trilogy, building fascinating worlds with a combination of beautiful level design and the clever mechanics that support it. Of particular note for me is the scan system, allowing for subtle yet engaging storytelling. I feel like this has been mimicked by a lot of modern games through things like collectible journal entries, but it has never felt quite as integrated or believable as Retro Studios' efforts. Hopefully seeing bits of the introduction to Prime 1 in the background will give you an idea of why I adore these games so much, or at least bring back fond memories for those who have already had the pleasure of playing through them. Now, while the main reason I would recommend this purchase is the quality of the games themselves, there are a few reasons to get the Wii U version in particular. I've already mentioned off-screen play, and while the lack of gamepad controls is irksome, it's still nice to have. This is especially the case for those who want to 100% the games, because hunting collectibles does take time and it doesn't really require the big screen. Upscaling to 1080p is also appreciated. The games do still hold up visually, although it's worth noting that both of these features are available in Wii mode for those who have the Trilogy disc and a Wii U. So really, the biggest advantage of the Wii U download is the convenience of having it right there on the Wii U menu, easily accessible after the session of Smash Bros that most other cast members have recently played. But I can't not mention the price, even though it isn't really a feature of the game itself. $26 is an absolute steal for the Prime Trilogy, less than a quarter of the prices you'd likely find for the disc version. If you've never played them before, I'd say it's the biggest must-buy on the Wii U right now. That is, of course, if you have the right controllers to play it. And considering the opening sale of $13, it might be worth it purely for the convenient excuse to relive the Metroid Prime experience. It definitely was for me. That's all I've got to say for now, but I'll let you see the rest of this brilliant introduction. Please do let me know if you'd like to see more of this kind of content, and head over to another castle to discuss all things gaming. Links are in the description.